Like a lot of you, I've been watching the situation in Ukraine with a mix of horror, frustration, and helplessness. But there's also a lot to be inspired by. The strength of the Western alliance, the almost global unity against Putin, and most of all, the fierce resilience of the Ukrainians and the leadership of President Zelensky. Zelensky is showing the world what happens when people are called upon to be their best selves. And I've been wondering a lot, actually, how different things might have been if the United States had had a leader who could have done the same thing for us when we were threatened by a deadly virus. I think President Biden really wants to be the kind of leader Zelensky is proving himself to be. His State of the Union message made that clear. He wants unity for this country. But we need to remember that the reason the United States is still suffering from COVID, from economic uncertainty, from political crisis and civil division, and the reason the world is facing its greatest military threat in a century is in large part because of the very people Biden is trying to bring to his side. Since the Republican convention in 2016, the Republican Party has enabled Russia directly and indirectly and undermined Ukraine time after time after time. Donald Trump, the de facto leader of their party, who calls Putin a genius, was impeached because he was willing to withhold desperately needed military aid from Ukraine if they didn't help him steal the 2020 election, just as Russia had helped him steal the 2016 election. And let's face it, right now, the issue isn't what Donald did. It's what Republicans have let him get away with for years now. They could have voted to remove him from office because he was guilty. We all know he was guilty. They could have done it twice. And they chose to stick with the man who has taken Putin's side against his own intelligence agencies, against his own people. They could now be supporting President Biden and help him unify our country against a common enemy. But they care about nothing except raw power. Putin invaded Ukraine because Biden is so weak, the Republicans tell us. The only reason he didn't invade when Donald was in the Oval Office is because Donald's so strong, which is so absurd as to be delusional. Putin didn't have to invade Ukraine because Donald was helping him accomplish everything he wanted. An America torn apart by chaos and cruelty, a weakened Western alliance, and a destroyed NATO. The Republicans who are now claiming that Putin is our enemy are the same people who continue to prop up and follow Donald, Putin's greatest enabler, the guy they'll all vote for again if he is allowed to run in 2024. While Republicans pretend to hate Putin and his tactics, they're perfectly comfortable banning books, outlawing the teaching of American history, turning women into second-class citizens, making it almost impossible for the votes of Black Americans to count, criminalizing transgender people, and endangering the lives of LGBTQ children. If the Republicans want to stop attacking democracy, if they want to stop taking away the rights of everybody but straight white men, then fine. They can meet us where we stand. Otherwise, they are as much our enemy as Vladimir fucking Putin. Welcome, everybody, to the very first live Mary Trump show. It is so exciting to be here, and it is even more exciting for me to have as my guest some of my favorite people on the planet, E. Carroll, Marissa Rothkopf, Jen Taub. Guys, thank you so much. You are not just people whose opinions I trust implicitly. You are also my friends, or in Joyce Vance's parlance, my best friends from COVID. So it is fantastic to have you here on the inaugural live version of the show. Welcome.
What a great rant. That rant killed me. I'm like burning up with excitement. That was brilliant.
Thank you, Eugene.
Brilliant.
But let's talk about something else.
Okay. I love it. I love it. Nobody
Seriously.
rants like you, Mary. I swear to God that you're the best ranter ever.
Thank you. Well, there's a lot to be
Yep.
ranting about these days. And there's so much going on. It really is hard to start. But I want to focus first of all on what is happening with the Western approach to Ukraine, the kind of fractured American political response because of the Republicans and their hypocrisy, and two major issues in particular about that. One, profiteering by the oil and gas industry, and the other, inflation, which preceded the conflict in Ukraine, but is continuing to be misrepresented by the media and, of course, by Republicans. So, Jen, I'd like to start with you let's focus first on the profiteering issue, because it explains so much about why people are going to be suffering more than they need to, and about how things are getting misrepresented to undermine President Biden.
Yeah, Mary. I mean, I am, first of all, let me just cheerlead like Eugene. That was a great rant. Eugene is not the only former cheerleader from the Midwest among your friend circle here. I don't know about Marissa, whether you were a cheerleader, but so that was great.
I was in the band.
But I'm not cheering. I am not cheering about inflation, and I'm especially not happy about the way that folks with a particular agenda are trying to mislead the public about the causes of price inflation. Yeah. It's infuriating, and there's some folks who are starting to expose it. And that includes a group that I helped co-found, Tax March. They just put out a really great tweet today that links to a lengthy report just about how profiteering, profiteering is going on. And people are using inflation as a kind of camouflage, right? Mm-hmm. So we had some supply chain issues resulting from COVID. Supply chains issues resulting from companies trying to be so lean that they didn't have access to inventory. So long history of that. Supply chain issues that result from corporations moving stuff, moving factories and businesses offshore to avoid taxation. So all of these things kind of create this perfect storm. And then we also, have supply chain issues because a lot of people are staying home, aren't going to stores, and are trying to order a lot of things they wouldn't have normally ordered because they can't do other things. All these things happen. And then we saw Republicans blaming Biden for the supply chain issues. And then some corporations are blaming the fact that they're price gouging on the supply chain issues. They say, it's a supply demand thing, and we can't, we can't break even because we have all of our input costs are so high, which is utter BS. And so getting back to that tweet, I'm sorry, I'm on a rant. This isn't, but back to that tweet, you look at every single key category in the consumer price index, whether it's food, energy, commodities, healthcare, or shelter. And yes, we see them gone up, but why they're going up primarily is because corporations aren't just breaking even or making a reasonable profit. They are making huge profits. What? So they are paying out dividends to shareholders, and they're increasing their profits in huge numbers. I mean, I can't even, the number is that in those categories I gave you, those top categories on consumer staples, corporations have increased their profits by $151 billion. Right?
What?
Yes.
Can't the government price gouging is illegal, theoretically. Cannot the government do anything about it?
Well, I mean, the reason I'm not sure that I'm calling it price gouging in this way in a general way. In and of itself, what they're doing isn't unlawful, but it stems from oligopoly and sort of oligopolistic pricing power, because there isn't enough competition. And, that's part of it. And I think some of the shaming is going to help, right? I mean, the director of the Groundwork Collaborative, Lindsay Owens, had this tweet that went viral about this kind of profiteering. And then she was on, I think, the Rachel Maddow show. And then she was just recently on the Jon Stewart show. People are starting to pay attention. In fact, she's hitting a nerve because people like Larry Summers are pushing back and saying, it's not that, it's not that. And I know about antitrust and all this stuff. It's like, no, we don't have enough competition here. It's bad. Let me just say one last thing. I'm so fed up. I'm wearing my shirt that says literally can't. And by the way, I didn't buy this in a store. I bought it. I love thrift shopping. And I saw this and my younger kids said, don't buy that shirt, Mom. And so I bought it.
Of course. I mean, that's permission right there. I need that shirt because I literally can't.
It's kind of negative, Mary. So I'm just going to take it off.
I'm known for my great
This is my true self. And I actually didn't buy this shirt either. I think someone gave it to my older kid who was embarrassed, didn't want it. So
I love it. Can I ask a question? Is this true or false? Does America export 50% of our oil production? Is that a true fact? Export. We export.
We export a lot. I don't know if it's 50%.
We do export a lot.
We export a lot, right? Is it?
Yeah. And we almost very little.
Explain to me why gas prices are going up if we're exporting our oil. That's my big problem today. I don't understand it.
I mean, I think what Jen was getting at is because the oil and gas industry is basically doing whatever they want. They're reducing output to keep prices artificially high. Because the other issue too, and this does complicate things, we import extremely little Russian, I think maybe 3%.
Right.
The problem though comes in when European countries are much more dependent and their economies could potentially not be able to handle the massive increases in prices that would occur. In general, gas prices in the US are much lower.
Yeah.
It's been a really long time. Well, actually, it hasn't been. I was in Amsterdam recently, but I didn't see a gas station because I wasn't there for very long. But the last time I was in Europe, which was quite a while ago, I mean, gas prices are like 3 or 4 times higher per gallon.
Really?
So yeah, and actually, so in some ways we don't have a lot to complain about, but easy to say when. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. I was supposed to give you the data on the prices, and
just let me finish this thought really quickly because so we can segue into that. It's really easy to say that though when you live at home, when an extra 50 cents a gallon isn't going to do much other than annoy you. But we have poor and working class people who need to drive
to their jobs.
Exactly. Sometimes at a distance. So, in addition to what else you were going to tell us, Jen, explain what can we do if we cannot force the oil and gas companies to do the right thing? Because why would they ever and when have they ever done the right thing? What can we do to help alleviate the economic consequences for people who are really going to be hurting if gas prices keep going up?
So some of the proposals are out there is to drop the federal tax on gasoline, right? At least temporarily. But the problem with that is that's just going to benefit the folks who are price gouging. I mean, if the numbers here with gasoline prices in 2021 increased almost 50%. And this was the 3 biggest U.S. oil companies, ExxonMobil, Chevron, and Marathon. They raised prices and their profits jumped up more than $87 billion. And they gave out either dividends or buybacks to shareholders around $4.5 billion last year. And, of course, the prices did go up last year. People weren't, but the irony, if you talk about supply demand, there wasn't as much demand for gasoline. People weren't driving as much. But yeah, there's this idea, Mary, since you asked of either temporarily or maybe for a longer period of time, getting rid of that gas tax. I mean, at the end of the day, it may, as a law professor, Alice Abreu from Temple said, it may be bad policy, but it's good politics. And the bottom line is inflation will kill a presidency. And on the one hand, we may say, the reason why, in theory, if you're a progressive and you want to save the planet, the theory is it's quote, good if prices are high, in theory, because then people won't buy gas guzzling trucks. On a macro level, that's true. But ordinary people who have, taped together the engine of their car to keep it going, who are making minimum wage, they can't, that's not their project. Plus, all the auto companies are trying to be, 100% electric. They've got that time frame. Right. That's where they're headed anyway. So I have my opinion is do what Biden should do, what he can do.
Kitten.
Oh my God.
Kitten alert.
I can't.
She's been ignoring me all day long. Okay.
And I don't think it's a bad idea politically to get the prices down. People are suffering and
sorry, Jen, you froze.
Right at the interesting part.
I know. Well, okay. So hopefully we'll get Jen back unfrozen.
I will say,
I'm back.
Okay.
Oh, you're back. Okay, good.
All right.
Yeah, but Carter's presidency, with inflation going up, we had then the Fed was raising interest rates. Everyone got kind of the whole thing. It made borrowing costs high, and it kind of sunk Carter's presidency. Biden needs to get a handle on inflation. And that might be shaming these companies. And there's a lot of stuff he's got to do because ordinary people cannot afford double the food prices, the gas prices going up. It just can't happen.
But again, I mean, how much control, and this is a part of the problem. The media do a horrible job of explaining things to people. Presidents can't control inflation. It's a worldwide phenomenon. It's hitting the United States harder for reasons that are probably above my pay grade, but it's happening everywhere because of some of the things you mentioned, supply chain issues, et cetera, and rising prices because of the increased demand since COVID is, well, allegedly over. But presidents don't control gas prices either. So
there's pressure. I mean, you can put pressure. I mean, there's got to be pressure. Whatever legal and political pressure can be put on some of these near monopolies, because I agree with you. The story has to be told correctly. And I think Biden started to do that at the State of the Union, right? He talked about antitrust. Capitalism without competition is exploitation. Right.
That's
I'm quoting him.
Yeah.
And he's got to get that message through. And I think he's trying.
Marissa, you wanted to jump in?
I have about a couple things that I want to say. And one is also, Biden isn't in, can't control inflation that way or can't control the gas companies that way. But you know who are in charge of the gas companies or who are in bed with the gas companies? Is the Republicans, right? And
their honorary member, Joe Manchin.
Right. Democrat, air quote, Democrat, Joe Manchin. So they, your rant started off kind of seemed to be bad mouthing some of the Republicans, and I'm sort of on with that because I think they have a lot to do with it, and they could be helping America, and I wish that message we're getting out to the populace. That is, it's one of the things I talked about with Allison Gill last week on my podcast. It's how to create this message that is clear, which is to your point. How do you create a message that's clear that inflation is not something that is just happening to us? It's happening globally. Joe Biden isn't impacting the world with his, inflationary cabal, and that's, I think, our greatest challenge for progressives or Democrats or whatever you call yourself is to be able to create a message that delivers things clearly, that you say inflation is caused by this, this, and this, and make sure that the message is clear on the news. And unfortunately, it's not the simple message. And you know how much we like simple messages.
But I think in some cases, that's not necessarily true. Inflation's on the rise. Gas prices are on the rise. Democrats have a plan to help you. Every single Republican voted against it.
Oh,
that's pretty simple. Yeah, and Eugene, I wanted to ask you because we've been talking, starting to allude to the State of the Union and Biden's unity message. We're in a situation right now where, although Republicans are on board hypocritically, you could say, based on their pro-Putin behavior over the last few years. They're on board with the sanctions. They're on board with the oil embargo, et cetera. But they are going to blame Biden for the increase in gas prices, even though they're essentially voting to make that happen, and then not going to vote to help alleviate the stress on the American worker. So what do you think of Biden's approach here? Is a unity message with this Republican Party the way to go right now?
You know what I feel like? I feel like I'm in the Miss America pageant. We're all lined up here, the finalists, and I just got my question. And that question is hard. I'm for world peace. Okay. I just want to say that right now.
Yeah.
No,
but also Eugene would definitely win the fitness in a swimsuit competition as well.
I don't know.
And the ball gown.
When best, here's the thing. I'm here to learn. I really don't have, I listen to your podcast every week, Mary. I listen to yours, Marissa. And what I do is why I listen to them is because, I have opinions. But what I'm here for is to learn. I learned from you. You have like Jen just telling us about the taxation of gas. I didn't know that. So please don't ask me for my opinion about the message. You know my message. I think Mary should run for president on the Republican ticket. That is my message. And I go to the brains here about,
Well, Eugene, don't be so modest. Weren't you just telling us a few minutes ago about how Sherrod Brown, Senator from Ohio, and Sheldon Whitehouse from Rhode Island, was thinking of passing a law called the windfall profit tax on excess oil profits and pay those profits back as a rebate to customers? Earlier, Eugene, don't be so shy. I think that's a great idea. Hey, what'd you do to your hand?
Oh, because I got a goddamn pellet stove. Those bags weigh 40 pounds, and so I've strained my wrist lifting the pellet bag.
Oh, okay. But anyway, Eugene, what do you think of that idea of saying if there's so much profit, let's give it as a rebate back to consumers?
I love it. That I love. And I love that you're so up on it. You got the Sherrod Brown thing. I love it.
But Eugene,
I love him.
First of all, I think it's you're really underestimating yourself when you say that you don't know enough to have an opinion. I think a lot of people seek you out, obviously, because you're the best advice columnist out there.
But because when you ask Eugene, my boyfriend cheated on me, that I can answer.
No, but you incorporate other things that are going on in the world. You incorporate the issues about the political crisis we're facing, et cetera, et cetera. So I do think it's important. I want to know what you think about because I don't think any of us needs to be an expert. We're human beings. We're Democrats. We've been paying attention. Do you think at this stage of the game, it makes sense or is strategically sound to try to become united with the same party that seems still to have no agenda other than undermining the Biden administration in particular and Democrats in general?
No, you're right, Mary. I think we recognize we do not unite. We fight them. That's it.
Yeah.
We fight them.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. Don't unite.
Fight. Right. And I think one a much better way to accomplish that than having me run as a Republican would be to have Liz Cheney run as an independent.
Oh,
that's what needs to happen.
That's rich.
In my view.
Good.
Oh, that's an interesting concept.
I like it.
What if we looked at the Republicans as being really bad boyfriends? You know what I mean? Like, right? Like, I think they're
oil company.
Exactly.
They're
cheating on. If I'm their constituent, they're cheating on me for their love affair with the oil companies. Okay, that's all. I'll just leave that there for you.
The problem is, and I think that's been a dynamic that a lot of people identified very early on when after the 2016 election. equating Donald with an abusive spouse or an abusive father, what have you. And I'm not about to suggest that he's irrelevant, because he's still very dangerous, thanks to the Republican Party. But I think the Republican Party is taking over that role. The problem, however, seems to be that their base doesn't seem to recognize it as abuse. The base doesn't seem to recognize that not only that the Republicans don't have any policies to speak of, but the very few they do have hurt them, hurt most of the people in that base. The only thing that I want to say advantages them, but that makes them feel better, is the fact that they've been given permission to hate anybody they don't like.
Oh, yeah.
To be as cruel as they want to be. And it is a little bit frustrating to realize how well that's playing and how far it's gotten them. Jen, doesn't that just sort of blow your mind that this is a party of no substance, of no plans? Literally their only plan is to cheat as much as possible so they can, win, even if they lose all the time.
Yeah, this is not a conservative party any longer.
Right.
No.
Right. And there are some, even though I'm a lifelong Democrat, there are some, I hold a number of what I would consider conservative values. Conservation in the environment is something, if we remember, under the Nixon administration. There are other conservative values I care about. Teddy Roosevelt.
Exactly.
And I care about institutions. Caring about building and maintaining institutions is a conservative value, right? So we have, and I care about the family. I just define the family more broadly than maybe old school conservatives do. But I look at what they're embracing, and it's not a message. It's a cult of personality, and it's an anti-intellectual, anti-logic. It's a very kind of stereotypical toxic masculinity, strongman kind of thing. And it just takes us back in a really it's brutishness, and it's not, Donald is not a conservative figure in any way. Right. Somebody who had several marriages. I'm fine with people having several marriages. I'm not saying that, but he's not had several marriages. He also, while one of his wives was pregnant and had a child, apparently had a sexual affair with a adult film star. I think consensual relations among adults is fine. I personally think it's really, though, offensive that wasn't the agreement they had in their relationship. I sound more conservative than him. So if you look at other things, he doesn't care about the environment. I could go through all the lists of things, and that doesn't seem to be at all. The new Republican Party is Matt Gaetz, is Marjorie Taylor Greene, is Cawthorn, people who are putting the sign up saying, I can be bought.
Yeah.
Politics is all transactional. Give me power so I can take what I want. That's what that party has become. And it's actually disgusting and sad.
Yeah. What is their healthcare plan? What is their education?
Get rid of the ACA. That's their healthcare plan.
What is it, Mary?
Yeah.
It's to get rid of the Affordable Care Act and take health insurance away from millions of people. That's their plan. That's literally their plan. They have nothing to replace it.
It drives me. What is the Republican education plan?
I get rid of the Department of Education.
It's amazing. Yeah. Do you remember the Democratic debates? They spent 8 debates discussing Medicare. Remember with Biden? The Democrats, they had everything figured out. Every kind of plan, education, Medicare, old, young, everything. And I'm just stuck. There's no plan. Okay, got it.
Right. And
do you remember at the Republican convention when I'm writing in something into their about Ukraine?
Yes.
Oh no! What?
Yeah, they took
That was
going on
that was in
forever.
2016.
2016.
Right.
In 2020, they just said, yeah, whatever we said last time is our thing now. They didn't even make a platform.
Yeah, they changed the platform in 2016, which I forgive me, I don't remember the details, but it had been essentially a pro-Ukrainian platform to keep pressure on Putin and sort of disempower him in that arena. And at Donald's request, that protection of Ukraine was taken out.
No.
Yeah. Of the Republican
Party.
platform.
Listen to your podcast. Never knew it. Love it.
So this has been going on for a very long time, and that was just the first salvo in a very long war.
Wow.
But it's so much was just said, but I want to focus for a second, Marissa, on the idea of conservatism, because it seems to me this is another instance in which the failure to define language properly is misleading and gives cynical people the opportunity to take advantage. In other words, conservatism has come to be synonymous with republicanism. And maybe, I mean, quite honestly, I don't really ever think that was true, because as Jen said, if you think about it, one could be a conservative dresser, one could be conservative in terms of not wanting us to kill the planet and everything living on it, so it is that failure that I think, because conservatism is, I think, generally speaking, considered positive. So how do we, since the Republican Party is entirely divorced from that concept, and yet that term is still used, how do we fight? And again, it's not just conservatism, it's their I actually said this to Elie Mystal the other day. It's like they co-opt our language and use it against us, like by taking over our body, our choice. We use our own language to attack each other by using the term woke improperly.
Exactly.
So how do we combat that?
I don't, the example I was going to lead off with was about our bodies, our choice, and how they completely and utterly co-opted that in in a sort of mind-blowing way. All of this,
What did they say, Marissa? How did they take that? I don't. What did they say?
Well,
about masks?
About masks and vaccinations.
Vaccines.
Oh. Right.
So we're like, we think our body's our choice and we know what we're talking about, but they said, we're going to talk to you about our body's our choice. And what we really mean is we get to choose whether or not we vaccinate ourselves or not, or wear a mask in public.
Okay.
So there's so many kind of gross debasements of our language that has occurred. Right. Yeah. And the one I was thinking about this morning in my I feel I don't mean to belittle myself, but in my very simple-minded way, because I think that's the best approach I have to.
Wait, stop. Second time someone has done something self-deprecating on this podcast.
Yeah, I just so you guys watching understand, this group, which also includes Katie Fang and Joyce Vance, who unfortunately couldn't join us, but maybe might, hopefully, later on. We have something we call the self-deprecation alert, and it's a siren. And it's in a siren emoji in case anybody ever says something like, my opinion doesn't mean anything because I don't know anything, or I'm simple-minded. So, I don't know. I need somebody to bully that for me. We need a siren sound. Anyway, so with that said, part, Marissa, please continue.
And
thank you, Jen.
Thanks, Jen. My simple approach to things. How about that? Is that better? My simple approach,
and simple and elegant approach.
Simple and elegant, yeah, like my little black dress I'm not without, is I was looking at clips of Laura Ingraham this morning and her being on Fox News and talk about a debasement of the language, right? Yeah. The fact that news can be associated with the Fox network is really remarkable. Right. And I teach journalism in spare time. And one of the things I make my students do is they have to follow the news. And we will, so we have to talk about the news. And for college students, it's not always the easiest thing. If you're not like, a political science student, or whatever, no matter how much I want them to be following the news, it's not something that comes with their use of extra time. And so I make them follow the news. And it's very hard for me not to say all the time, no, I'm sorry, that information that you gave me from Fox News, or whatever you've repeated to me from Fox News, that can't be your primary source of news because it isn't news. And I could get into trouble for that, right? I say, because it seems biased.
What?
If I'm not promoting all forms, because it's considered a competitive newscast or news agency to MSNBC or NBC or CNN.
I think that the last time you guys were on, we had a conversation about that in terms of, Sean Hannity and Laura Ingraham, who, in my view, are not journalists. And even if they were not journalists in their capacity as Donald's campaign advisor, or, telling him that maybe inciting an armed insurrection wasn't a good idea, that it would be a slippery slope to subpoena them because of their First Amendment rights as journalists. And again, it always feels like we play by the rules and lose.
Yep.
And
that's right.
They don't give a shit about the rules because, by the way, they blew them up and they win. So, it's that dynamic. Democrats, we can't get rid of the filibuster. We have to respect democratic institutions. And I'm like, that's really cool, but it's going to end up without our having a democracy anymore.
Right. And, the thing I reacted to this morning was from last night, which was Laura Ingraham saying it's the liberal agenda that's causing people to want to teach about, genderism. There's another new ism that we can talk about in schools. It's a part of the liberal agenda. And that was the chyron across the screen. So you could have, seen it whatever bar you were in watching Fox News or wherever you were watching it. That was the message that they delivered, and they're really, really good at it.
They are really good at it. And Eugene, I think that is where Democrats are fighting with both hands tied behind their back, because the gaslighting is so unrelenting and so shameless that it's almost impossible to counter it. One, I think because it makes our heads explode. What demoralizes and weakens us makes them happy.
There's the Mary. We can combat it. The Democrats have this, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? They're doing this and they did that and we're doing that. Democrats just got to cut that shit out and just do a positive, start doing the positive messages. We have electrifying people. Every Hollywood star is a Democrat. Recording stars are Democrat. People with all the charisma in the world are Democrats.
But it's the Jewish cabal in Hollywood.
It's the Jewish,
taking over, right? Then they can
I'm telling you.
I just want you to know, people listening, that Mary, when she said that, she was saying that ironically, not endorsing the anti-Semitism.
Exactly.
Oh my God, please, guys. I'm saying, I just want to make this very, very clear.
To God. But we got to turn this. The way of seeing that the Republicans are gonna take down democracy. It's not going to happen if we stay.
I agree with you.
Stay positive and start doing a positive.
I'm not being negative. What I'm suggesting, first of all, is that the Democratic Party doesn't quite seem to understand the threat yet. And in response, you're saying we have people, we have the most charismatic people, we have Hollywood stars. What I was saying is that the Republican response to that would be the cynical, anti-Semitic, fear-mongering, It's George Soros. It's the Jews controlling everything because they're scumbags.
You put Tom Hanks on for 15 seconds. It's just, Taylor Swift. Just name your people. But unfortunately, we have Senator Schumer goes out. And it was like, so that's who goes, that's his representatives.
Yeah.
And, Pelosi is dynamite, but she is not Taylor Swift. Let's just use our power. It's like we're Napoleon. He knew everything about artillery. Napoleon knew everything. He knew how to, what size ball, where to do this. And that's what we got. We got the best artillery. We got all the charismatic people. We just got Mary. You should have a show on every day live for an hour, every single day, not once a week, every single day. You have charisma.
Okay.
You actually have charisma.
But you know what? People like Mitch McConnell.
Oh,
as much as I know you're deeply in love with him, all of you ladies, he does not have an unsel.
no.
Which is a Jewish cabal word. He doesn't have any charisma, and yet somehow he, leads in messaging. Our messaging
he's shameless. He doesn't care about being hypocritical.
No,
he can attack our vulnerabilities without any shame or compunction. And I think that does make him effective to the people who are, because it's also, we have different audiences, right? People who are listening to Mitch McConnell that are not us. But they're so Eugene, you've been in the media for a long time. You're an expert communicator. So why aren't we, if we know what to do, why isn't it being done? If there's an effective solution to this, why isn't it happening?
I'm afraid that Democrats are Savannah.
Long-winded.
Savannah Guthrie should have looked at Bill Barr during that interview and said, "Bullshit,"
or not interviewed him.
We've got to start just saying they're lying. It doesn't take a lot of courage to say you're lying, but it seems to me we lack a little oomph. I don't know. We're so well mannered, and it's not the time for manners. It's time for fight, and that's
right.
The four of us are fighting. This is what we do. This is what we do.
Yeah, no,
we're well mannered, and we lecture people because we want to show that we have this intellectual approach to things where we look at things from both sides and look how we weighed it and we balanced it, and this is our outcome.
Yeah,
nobody wants to hear all that.
But Marissa,
that's true.
What is the?
I'd listen if Jen just stood there and took off T-shirts. I'd start.
I don't have anything else left.
Wait. You're talking about
all right. Well, let's not.
The taxes? What?
Let's not push. Swearing is fine, but let's not. It's the first live show, so let's.
Oh, is it live? Sorry.
Hey, listen. You could ask Jen, please. So it was the dance of the two veils. The two layers.
It is a possibility for future Democratic ads, though. Just one T-shirt after
another.
It is
actually. I thought it was great. The great reveal. But
it's a good idea, Marissa.
So Marissa and Jen and whoever wants to jump in, what do we do though when people seem more moved by, more convinced by cruel, concise, maybe stupid, maybe cynical messages? Build the wall. My body, my choice. I alone can fix it.
He's brilliant at messaging.
I don't know. I mean, I think the thing that people said, oh, I like him because he says it like it is. Well,
right.
Although he lies all the time, what they're trying to say is that there was a kind of unrehearsed,
right? That's it.
He was speaking his own truth, which is he doesn't have, whatever he thinks at the moment is it, he's like a mental chameleon. But I do believe people will be drawn to.
Oh no!
You froze again.
Her dog's eating the Wi-Fi.
That was a very unnerving growl. So Marissa, until we get Jen back, What is the alternative? Like, how do we push back when our message is not, first of all, hopefully not cynical and cruel, and not necessarily easy to put across, because it does require nuance. What do we do about that?
I don't know if you heard what I got.
I actually jumped over to Marissa for a second because you froze. Oh. So let Marissa finish, and then we'll get back to you, Jen.
No, Jen, you go ahead, because you're in the mid.
I think the fact that Zelensky is so popular, even though he's an actor, goes to
not anymore.
That he knows how to deal with communication. He knows how to present a message and be consistent, but he also has the right message. He also is a person. It's not just a message. People hear what he's saying because he's genuine. And you know what? It only works because he was in the street. In other words, if Democrats want to say that we believe in shared prosperity and we believe in all these things we believe in public education, it's not going to work if we're riding around in our limos and wearing fancy clothes and our kids are all going to private schools. Right. Where are the Democratic politicians like the Sherrod Browns of the world? He was a teacher before he was a politician. Right. It's too fucking expensive to run for office. I have a lot of people telling me you should run, I can never run for office because I don't have...
You could, Jen.
Shush.
Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez ran.
Well, I'm in a district with an excellent person, Jim McGovern, so I would never run. But but the point is, there are people who care, who are going to be up on the issues, who won't be bought or sold by anyone. But it's in the Democratic Party, money still talks, not all of us. And so you can, it's a very high price for people to get elected. And so you don't always have people who are who are empathic, I think, running for office is the problem.
I mean, I agree with you, but then that's a double standard, because no Republican gives a shit. The difference is, like, I would rather have rich, entitled, out of touch people who really do care about helping the working class and poor people, even if they may not really understand it, than a bunch of, entitled, rich, selfish,
I mean, Ted Kennedy. I like I'd rather have Ted Kennedy. John Maynard Keynes was a rich guy supporting Virginia Woolf and his friends at Bloomsbury, but he changed the world. Yeah. Okay, fine. I take back everything I said.
No, you don't have to. I'm just saying that it's not that you're not wrong, but that puts us at a disadvantage because we're holding ourselves, as always, to much higher standards.
Look, we got the virgin whore thing.
We have that example. We have AOC shows us the way. She shows us the way. She was a bartender. I just got through reading the New York Magazine story about her beginning. She was nowhere. A little committee chose her because her brother nominated her and said, listen, and you know what? They plucked her and they groomed her and they educated her and and she came out, and when she first just said something about the all green plan, you know what? She got 9 likes. 9 likes on her Twitter. 9. That's how far she's come, because she's super serious. Understands how to present a message. Listen, she's the future. If we can get Mary, that's why I want you to be on the air every day, because AOC is out there every day. Marissa, you should probably go 3 times. And Jen's got her book on taxation called, I wanted to call it Rat Fuckers, but she refused. So, we're all doing.
We'll get to that in a minute.
No, we've got the people. We just got to put it. We just, as Mary said, we just have to. We have to line them up, and we have to, put them out on the battlefield and stop being nice and just go into the fight. That's
because Marissa, there's a difference between being decent and being a doormat. You can.
That is true.
If you,
why was that directed at me?
Because oh shit. Oh wow. Okay. You know what? Let's just move on, shall we?
Okay. Can I ask a question of the group?
Of course.
If I'm allowed to. Anyway, my question
is my siren.
Oh my God. Marissa,
she was being ironic. Yeah. That was like acting like a doormat, right? Oh, you know. Never mind.
Yeah.
Oh, here. Oh God, I'm Jensplaining. Sorry.
My question is about messaging is there are so many people in this country who have given up on the news, who have given up even caring, and they are an untapped source for the Democratic Party. How do we get to them? How do we find them, embrace them, and show them the way? I'm not going to turn it into a religious expression, but how do we turn it, get them on our side? How do we, right? How do we create a message that makes people want to be involved, that doesn't make people think, God, I hate the fighting. God, I hate whatever. Which is, I think if you go out and if you actually talk to somebody in a diner someplace in the United States that wasn't the Middle West, you would find lots and lots of people like, I don't want to deal with that stuff.
Yeah, but if you talk to them, so you can actually talk to them. That's the way to reach them. You go person to person. You go to the cafes. You actually go door to door. You know, like they did down in Florida. That's what our mayor spent. $1 billion? How much did he? $100 million on Florida in the presidential race. Remember when Bloomberg was running, and he put $100 million into Florida. He lost it. Because we didn't go door to door in Florida because of COVID. Right. The Republicans said, screw COVID, we're going door to door. And they went door to door and had these
conversations. And they killed all their, they killed 1 million of their people.
Yeah.
Oh, good point.
Well, I mean, not only their people, but
good point,
But listen, in principle, I agree with you. Not during a global pandemic that's killing 6 million people now. But yes, that is what you do. You meet people where they are, and you find out what's important to them. Yeah. And Democrats usually do have a really good ground game, but they also have a sense of decency and don't want to go door to door if it will endanger people's lives, which, as it turns out, was a disadvantage. But part of the problem, too, is, people are sick of it, but we can't ignore, and I'm not suggesting that you're suggesting this, Marissa, but, we do have to keep fighting certain fights, because I'll just focus on Texas and Florida, which seem to be trying to out dystopia each other, because the things that are going on in those two states they're not just terrifying and horrific, and it's not simply that they're going to endanger people's lives. They're also test cases. So, we need to hold that up, because they use their cruelty like a badge of honor.
Yeah,
they wield it like a badge of honor, and there seems to be.
This is all bad faith rhetoric, right? Like we're like the na. You're being hypocritical, and then it's like, that's what we do every time, and we just fall for we take the bait every single time. In other words, it's all bad faith rhetoric. They're, fuck your feelings stuff. But then we're like, but when your feelings get hurt, it's like it was never, nothing they say is in good faith. They will make any argument to manipulate.
Right. But who's saying that it is?
It's all in bad faith.
Right. So but who's saying it isn't in bad faith?
What? You're saying it isn't?
No. You're saying it's all in bad faith. And my question to you is, it is. Who on our side is saying that it's not?
On our side, though, each time we say, well, that's hypocritical. And then we do this or this. I think, in other words, if we say, well, you had that shirt that said, fuck your feelings, and now your feelings are hurt. And then we just seem like each time we do it, we're on their turf yet again. And in a way, I think we just need to not even get into the I don't know how to do it, because I do it all the time. I think more we need to do it, when they say things like any of this, say, oh, here we go again. And then just move on into our positive message. Because I think we get into the bickering.
That's a good idea. We just ignore
But I'm not sure how not to do it, myself.
We ignore it. That's good. We ignore it. We put Mary on the air every day, and she ignores it and does her own.
Kind of like when people say, they say, "Did you hear what so and so said?" And you said, "You know what? So and so says a lot of things all the time.
Right,
a bunch of nonsense. I'm here to talk about our plan for our shared prosperity for the American people."
Right. Absolutely, I agree with you, but I'm not talking about the rhetoric.
Sorry, Mary, you're not talking about the rhetoric.
That's okay. No, I'm not, because I mean, the problem with the rhetoric is that forget about the fact that it drives us crazy. I agree with you. We need to ignore it because it's as you say, it's in bad faith and it's cynical and it's false. So you're right. It should not be given any oxygen or energy. It shouldn't affect us at all. And we should, it just reminds me of the Republican debates when Donald was calling people names. Somebody should have just walked over to him and punched him in the face.
Yes.
Instead of trying to play his game on his playing field. So you're absolutely right. I'm talking about the policy, the cruelty of the policies.
Yes.
Like we can't ignore that.
Right.
No.
And yet it creates yet another, what some people would call a culture war, but I'm sorry, I don't think it's a culture thing when, you're endangering the lives of gay and trans kids,
Right.
That's real. And that needs to be dealt with very directly, but it makes, I'm sure, like Marissa said, there are probably many people who just see that as, there they go again. And we don't seem to
I hear what you're saying. I absolutely agree with you. I mean, it's cruel. It's it's oppressive. It's unconstitutional and divisive. It's
dangerous.
It's dangerous and it's mean. And I think that's exactly right. And we shouldn't say, "Oh, there they go again." We should say this party is dangerous.
Right.
Trying to hurt families, trying to hurt children.
There you go. There you go.
Right. That's a very strong message. They are dangerous and they are trying to hurt children.
Boy.
Simple to the point.
And that's actually, that's really clarifying, because I just realized it's, if we talk about it as policy, then it's something that we disagree about. And that's not what's happening here. This isn't policy. This is genocide. This is a way to take away the rights of people. What is it? Is it Missouri? One of those horrible states?
Idaho.
Life in prison.
Idaho.
For crossing state lines to get an abortion? That's Missouri.
Seeking out gender affirming care. Life in prison.
My God.
Seeking out medical advice in Idaho can get you life in prison. Medical advice, right? And if you cross state lines, I don't even know how it's legal, but if you cross state lines to ask for care, you can be also imprisoned.
That's right.
Back in Idaho.
And we can't for a second pretend that the Supreme Court wouldn't be okay with both of those things. Because, again, these are trial balloons. These are test cases. And the point of them is to get in front of this Supreme Court. Which leads me to something I hadn't actually planned to talk about, but it's so incredibly important. Why the fuck aren't there at least 4 more Supreme Court justices seated now? What, we need a commission to tell us that this needs to happen yesterday?
We need to have more than 50 votes in the Senate. Because you're allowed to. I mean, there's no, as you all know, Article 3 of the Constitution doesn't specify how many justices. We all know that.
Right.
Congress gets to do that.
Right. Okay. So Congress is the one that has to.
We could do it.
And so let's start with the Senate. Let's start with the Senate being an unfair body.
And what is that?
And again, that is the problem that the context we're operating in, that I think a lot of people don't understand. It's not simply as if it's simple. It's not only that historically the United States has never been a real democracy, for obvious reasons, because not everybody who's eligible to vote has ever been allowed to vote.
And the Senate wasn't always directly elected, remember?
But that's right. The Senate wasn't always directly elected, but the Senate, in and of itself, is an anti-democratic institution. So,
Exactly.
I mean, so leaving aside the appalling structural deficiencies of the Constitution that gave every state 2 senators regardless of population, because once as a brilliant First Amendment attorney of mine once said, the founders were a bunch of idiots. You know, so it's not really representative, but it just simply in terms of how it votes, it's not. And you know, what do you guys think of this? Because this has always been driving me crazy. Besides the fact that, you know, the media are very fond of saying the Democrats couldn't get it done. Well, you know what? 96% of Democrats in the Senate, who have the majority in the Senate, want to get it done.
They want to get it done.
So it's so weird to me that the majority party, that 96% of the majority party still can't get anything done.
We have to use. So here's the thing about power: you leverage the power you have,
right?
And so the majority of the population, the majority of voters, and even the majority of the vast majority of the population wants the kinds of policies we want. And so the people need to figure out how to leverage our power to get that done. And, you know, it's not just throwing money at it. We saw how much money was thrown to candidate to try to ditch Mitch, and it didn't work.
Right.
You know, and so, you know, we really have to figure that out.
Yeah.
And I don't know how. Yeah, I don't know how you get Joe Manchin to change his mind.
Well, he must want some stuff that we can withhold.
Well, I've been saying for a long time, you know, clearly Joe Manchin is getting paid a lot of money by special interests. I think that the DNC needs to shoot the lock off its wallet and say, you know what, Joe? Here's $5 billion. Because listen,
why don't we start a PAC? Why don't we start a "We love you, Joe Manchin"?
But seriously, it's like you're getting paid to do the wrong thing. We'll pay you more to do the right thing. And it reminds me, I wish I could remember who came up with this idea. It was so brilliant that senators should have to wear patches like NASCAR drivers do.
Absolutely. I love that idea.
They get their money from Exxon or Pfizer or whatever.
Yep.
Love it.
And Supreme Court justices too. I mean, on the off chance that some of them, some of them.
1 or 2, maybe.
And you know, Jen, you could have we could have a series of T-shirts too. That could be "I love you, Joe."
Right, and we could sell them for a lot of money and give right to him.
I'm telling you, we're laughing, but that is a good idea.
I'm dead serious. He's getting paid to do the wrong thing. Let's pay him to do right. I don't think it would work with cinema because I just think she's insane.
Sticks aren't working. Yelling at him isn't working. How about the charm and money offensive?
I think that's brilliant. Oh my God.
Should we waste our money? Let me ask this question though. Should we waste our money on Joe Manchin, or should we spend it wisely?
Other people's money. Other people's
not our money.
And if we get 4 more people on the Supreme Court, if we get the filibuster, it'll be worth it.
But Marissa, what choice do we have? Because we have there's nothing else. I mean, we have, I mean, for all intents and purposes, we have 48 Democrats and 2, I don't really even know how to describe them. So those are the only 2 we have to work with, unless and until.
This is good. Because
listen, this is the thing. And you know, I'm really curious to know what you guys think, because this is something that's been sort of driving me crazy, especially given how it's impossible to overstate how important this midterm election is. The fact that the media treat the Biden administration like it's a normal administration that followed another normal administration.
Absolutely.
Right? It sets us up for failure because people who don't have the luxury, if you want to call it a luxury, of having to pay attention to this shit all the time, they don't understand what's going on. Right, Marissa? You know,
that's right. People don't have the breadth of knowledge to be able to compare, to say, oh, well, maybe inflation wasn't directly caused by something that Joe Biden did, and be able to look back. Maybe what's happening in the Ukraine right now is not something that was started all the way back in 2016. You know, it's very quick to blame Joe Biden and his administration on everything bad that's happening, when actually they're doing tremendous work. And it's the kind of work that doesn't necessarily get us attention. It got attention when we dropped out of the Paris Accord with that chap you're related to, and we dropped out of the World Health Organization. But there's been so much going on behind the scenes. There's been so much going on behind the scenes with the Biden administration, building up our relationships, building up, rejoining the World Health Organization, talking to, being a member of NATO, not like turning our back on NATO. So
absolutely. And that's partially what I'm getting at. But if you talk about all of that stuff in the context of how bad things were, how badly damaged we were when Biden came into office, how not simply how weakened we were by the fact that hundreds of thousands of Americans were allowed to die on purpose, that our economy was tanked because of the willful malfeasance of the previous administration, and that Joe Biden didn't come in, just taking over the reins to keep having America be a democracy. He came in on the heels of an armed insurrection against our capital by the party
against
in power.
Democracy.
Exactly. So we're fighting fascism and authoritarianism. This isn't just like, oh yeah, there was a lot to do and he's doing it and it's happening quietly. It's such a failure, Jen, right? I mean, there's so much that needs context in order to understand. Right?
That's a good rant.
Oh,
thank you. Use that on tomorrow's show.
I mean, absolutely. And I think what's complex about this is that democracy is an ideal. Rule of law is an ideal. And, we've moved back a lot of steps and we need to keep moving it forward. And if any, the thing that knits it all together is we have nations, we have global powers who say we're going to be authoritarian. We don't believe in democracy, like China and Russia. And they point to us and they say, you're a bunch of hypocrites because look what's going on in your country. Again, it's not this, we cannot fall for you have to be perfect or it's got to be authoritarianism. The answer is we love this country. We love our families and friends. We're disappointed by the fact that the things that need to get done to save the planet, the things that need to get done to stop the dangerous people who are hurting our kids and hurting the planet, all that stuff that we all want to have a voice. This is what the beauty and the mess of democracy is about. And what happened to us, and I firmly believe it, and I've believed it ever since, December of 2016, is that the interference that we know happened, interfering in the election, between Russia doing that and Jim Comey announcing that they were reopening the investigation into Hillary Clinton's emails. Those two things were enough to get people either not to vote or to not vote for Hillary. That's why she ends up losing by, 77,000 votes across 3 states.
That's right.
And this is what happened. And Donald is incredibly compromised. There's something worse than a P-tape. This guy he's more than a useful idiot. We know they were going to build a Trump Tower in Moscow. We know everything we know that the press completely ignored because Bill Barr spun the Mueller report, right? We know. And what Putin has wanted and why he wanted Trump is he wanted Trump to get the U.S. out of NATO so that therefore the U.S. wouldn't be involved when he.
Why do we keep losing Jen at I don't know. She was the most important moments in what she's saying?
I know.
Not that they're not all important, but these crucially pivotal points in her.
It's probably the FBI, maybe.
Right.
There you are. You're back. Keep going. You're on a roll. Keep going. NATO.
But the end of the sentence, about the world. So this whole thing, this battle between authoritarianism and democracy, the Republicans are on the side of authoritarianism. We need to save our democracy from within. The war that's happening in the U.S. is this cold civil war, and now we're ending in another cold external war. And I'm just hoping that we can unify for democracy. But I'm not so hopeful when you have these ignorant, angry, dangerous nuts who are rising up in the Republican Party to copy your uncle.
Right. And listen, I want to get to what is going to be the last thing we talk about, but this is a perfect segue because I do not believe that this Republican Party will join us because they only care about power. They will do whatever they can to undermine President Biden, so the Democrats are really weak going into the midterms and going into 2024, which so let's leave aside for a second the fact that the Democrats don't seem yet to understand the threats facing us, and let's talk about what really could make a difference. And I mean, I think all of us have been saying some version of this for quite some time now, and that would be accountability. So the January 6th committee, even though it's taking longer than a lot of us would like, but as the saying goes, if you go at the king, you best not miss. And you think about how complex this investigation is, they do seem to be getting a lot done. And once this stuff is televised, that's fabulous. However, there are going to be plenty of people saying it's partisan. The only Republicans are Cheney and Kinzinger, and they're traitors to the Republican Party. So therefore, Merrick Garland, what say you? And I think, Jen, there seems to have been a change in people's attitudes towards what may or may not be going on at the DOJ based on some statements Garland made. Do you think that there's reason for us to hope that, despite the total lack of evidence, that the DOJ is really starting investigations or has started investigations into the people who betrayed our country?
Yeah, I think they've started investigations, but depending on the day of the week, ask me whether I think anything's going to come of it.
Oh, okay. What about today? She said.
It's frightening.
Earlier today, when did I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I believed, I think I have somewhere, I'm looking across my room and I think I still have a Mueller votive candle. So, So I'm not, listen, I don't have a Merrick Garland candle. Let me just tell you that.
Look how well the Robert Mueller
the Mueller one.
But so Marissa, being you, Eugene, and I are lay people. Jen is a law professor, so we don't know anything. We're impatient because we don't care about crossing the I's and dotting the T's or the other way around.
Let me just say, let me not be so cynical. If you want to know what can be done, Barb McQuaid's model memo, prosecution memo that was on just security goes through, in particular, two potential theories. One is conspiracy to defraud the United States. Oh, shoot. Conspiracy to defraud the United States, 18 U.S.C. 371, as well as
I'm telling you, it's the FBI.
It must be
Oh, you know what? It's probably the DOJ. Actually,
it's probably the DOJ. That's right.
All right. Well, she froze again. So, Marissa, being a fellow,
it's not the FBI. It's my family. It's my family who keeps using the internet.
Are they streaming?
And they say, there's plenty of bandwidth. And
I think it's because you live kind of, and I'm saying this as somebody who lives in New York City. It's because you live in the middle of nowhere.
Fine.
Just kidding.
But these two things that she analyzes, and whether Trump could be charged with them, I think Barb makes a persuasive argument. It all comes down to guts.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's enough. It's gut. It's are you going to be chicken shit or are you going to be Zelensky? That's the question.
That's right.
And that is the problem, right, Marissa? That by pulling his punches because he doesn't want to seem partisan. It's very possible that Garland is going to do one of the most partisan things in American history, which will end this country. So what part of it too, though, is don't you think we have a right to know one way or the other?
I do, as a layperson, right? I think we have a right to know. I think some of the things that Merrick Garland said this week gives, I mean, I'm one of those, I'm looked for every, clue or tea leaf, because I am a layperson and think, what is he saying? Did he twitch his eyebrow a little bit to the left? Does that mean he's leaning with the Democrats? But I'm very worried that he's going to come to the conclusion that whatever he could do would be too partisan, but it's not partisan. And aren't there enough smart people there who are on the debate team in college these are all lawyers in there. Their job is debate and be able to have a persuasive argument, right? And it's utterly persuasive to me to argue that this is not a partisan issue. This is an issue about right and wrong and protecting democracy.
Well, I think anybody paying attention would know that it's not a partisan issue. However, if he's worried about what people are going to think, then I think, we're in serious trouble anyway.
That's right.
And I do worry that he's sort of surrounded himself with his own cronies, who I don't know that he's actually allowing people who would challenge him access or whatever. But Eugene, as somebody, one of the very few people on this planet who is doing everything in your power to hold Donald accountable at considerable risk to you, and in ways that I'm sure have made your life difficult in a way it didn't need to be if he'd ever been held accountable before. What do you think, Merrick Garland aside, the DOJ aside, the terrible news coming out of the Manhattan District Attorney's Office aside, what do you think, if anything, will be the one thing to force the issue, to hold him accountable, even if it's not to the degree we want him to be? I'm talking about Donald, obviously.
I think Merrick Garland's going to surprise people.
Okay.
I think Merrick Garland is going to prosecute. I just have that feeling, because he's a smart. I'm staying optimistic. I believe he will do it. And the J6 committee is really romping. They're going to town. They're beating the band. I think Merrick Garland, weakling though he is, will do the right thing. I do.
He reminds me of Linus.
Yeah, he's a good man. We think he's a good man. I understand he's
I don't like what he did to you.
I don't think he's a good man at all. In fact, that's exactly the first reason.
Okay.
That's the first reason. The fact that this man thought it was worth American taxpayers' time and his agency's resources to defend that alleged rapist and criminal Donald Trump against. I'm sorry. He's not a good man.
Look, but I think he's going to do the right thing now. I think he's going to do it, because he just cannot live with his historic record if he doesn't do it. He won't be able to live in history as he wants.
Well, unless he's like Bill Barr, who famously said, "I don't care about history. I'll be dead." Well,
Isn't that the worst? It's the worst.
And now he's getting like primetime coverage for his stupid book. So he can start his rehabilitation tour.
That's what he was doing.
Which again, though, it's like somebody said this earlier about the Savannah Guthrie interview and all of the interviews. The only reason to have somebody like Bill Barr on, or
don't have
any of those people, is to push back.
Yes,
not to give them free rein to keep lying, and that's where we keep getting ourselves into trouble.
And we hope that Garland is surrounded with a few dudes, because we know there are no women around him. A few dudes who will push back.
Well, luckily there in fairness, the Civil Rights Division has been doing a pretty decent job of, right, Jen? I mean,
yes, but like even Lisa Monaco, but she was selected by the president, right? He didn't select those folks.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah. I feel good about it. I think it's going to happen.
Okay. Well, maybe we should place a bet.
When, Eugene?
I think it's going to happen this spring. I have this feeling.
No way.
Yeah, Mary. I'm
2023 at the earliest.
Eugene, I'm going to get an Eugene votive candle then. That's the great.
Yeah, me too.
Really?
I've been telling the Gay Guy Candle Company that we need an Eugene candle so we can burn it.
Okay. Wait, is it going to smell? It's going to smell like a pellet stove. What's it going to smell like?
Smell like my.
I'll have to ask them.
Okay, this is good, Mary. Mary, please, can I just say one more time? We need you on daily, and we need you on daily. All right.
I don't have life, so that could happen. I have the time.
You have a fascinating life. You play the guitar, and I don't know what all. And you bake, and you got birds, and you got the cat.
She cannot go on daily until we go on our little vacation.
Okay.
Oh,
that sounds like something to work towards. Okay, so I want to wrap up because otherwise we'll be here forever because I'm selfish that way. But you guys do have lives to get back to. So
Laughing.
we're in this.
What's a life? I have not done anything in 2 years. I don't have a life.
What do you mean you're teaching law students? You're making the future of America safe by training young lawyers who go and argue for us.
We need good lawyers. That's for damn sure. So dark times. I think that sort of goes to that saying. So just really quickly, I'd like for each of you to
sing. Do you want each of us to sing?
I wasn't going to say that, but please do.
We can't sing without Katie Fang because she was in her a cappella group at Yale, and we need her to lead us.
Next time when we
she's
have
the one with the pitch pipe. She carries the pitch pipe.
That's right.
I love it.
So next time Katie's on with us, we'll all sing. Maybe. So what I was going to say though is if you could each just tell me something, please, that gives you hope these days, because it's tough. It's tough. I've been saying this for a really long time, probably since 2017. It's a very difficult time to be a human being with empathy. Even if we're not in the trenches, literal or figurative, even if, we are able to ride out the storm more easily than other people. Just seeing everything that's going on and seeing how badly people are affected and seeing how people are being taken advantage of. And obviously what's happened with COVID and what's going on in Ukraine. So it is, I think it's really important to remind ourselves, even if, it's hard. What gives us hope? Eugene, what keeps you hopeful these days? And I know it's the fact that I'm going to run for the Republican.
Yeah, well, I was going to say that. But you know what? It's the little joys of day-to-day life. It's the little joys, when you see your dog catch a ball, you hear the bird in the tree. It's that moment, and you take that moment and you tell yourself, look at that. This is what living is about. And then you move on. That's it. It's the tiny, tiny things. I saw a cardinal today, out my window.
My favorite backyard bird.
That what?
It's my favorite bird.
There
backyard. Sorry, Sebastian.
So I said to myself, look at that. This is what life is. So, and then I looked at it. And so I had that moment, and now I'm listening to your show. I'm getting all depressed.
No.
But you have to keep reminding people like me, because I would go on in a glaze of,
Well, yeah. Marissa, before I ask you, I just want to say really quickly, and I try to remind people of this. My goal is not at all to demoralize people, but we need to arm ourselves with facts, and we need to know what we're facing,
right? Because
otherwise we'll get caught unawares and be at even more of a disadvantage than we already are. So this is none of this is about making us depressed or feel helpless. It's about saying, okay, this is where we are, and let's figure out what to do. And let's do that together, because again, and we can never forget this, there are so many more of us than there are of them. They're louder, they're meaner, they're cruel, but we've got strength in numbers, and we need to act like it, basically. So anyway, Marissa, what gives you hope?
One of the things that gives me tremendous amount of hope, and this is almost a singing moment because I could quote Whitney Houston here, but truly, I have college age and high school children, and I see them and how their friends react to what's going on in the world. And on the one hand, they're absolutely crushed and terrified about what's going on in the world. But on the other hand, their approach to issues like, and not just in my little weird liberal bubble, and I do live in a weird little liberal bubble, but approach to gender, immigration, colonialism, capitalism. And I don't just believe it's because they're at that, young stage where you're like, everything is, a dream for me and I'm going to make fantastic things happen. No, these kids have such strong belief systems already. It's something I was not like this. And I am so impressed at their approach to life. It is absolutely 180 degrees different than the old white man in suits in the Senate. Right. And it is the incredible amount of hope.
Yeah. And it is it's not, you're right. It's not that knee-jerk, I'm young, I'm immortal thing. It's in the context of horrors that have been inflicted upon them by older generations. Right. And so you do believe that children are the future. And I think
I do. And if you gave Jen and I a moment, because we've sung Cats, the musical together. So I'm sure we can do some hits from Whitney Houston. Remember, Jen? Remember the days, memories?
Have we met? I recognize the other two of you, but this other person, I'm not so sure. I was never on your podcast.
Anyway, let's pretend that didn't happen. Just kidding. Jen, what gives you hope?
Both my kids, but I want to talk about them again in this podcast, but also the kids I teach. I'm, this semester I was blown away by my students. And in particular, a new class I am doing a seminar called Money, Law, and Power. And it's not your typical learn the law, learn what a statute says and how it's been interpreted by the courts. This is more of a perspectives course, giving context for the law. And the two books we've read so far, the first was Marissa Rothkopf's The Color of Money, about Black banking over the years. And the second book that we've read is The Whiteness of Wealth by Dorothy Brown. And not only are they doing the reading, but they're able to extract the key points, the interesting, surprising facts, and the next things they want to know. They're able to critique the arguments. They know all about Reconstruction. They know they can put these things together in ways that I'm surprised. Looking at all ranges of theory, have debates with each other with respect. I mean, I'm just astonished and so happy with this group of students.
Excellent.
I just want to do a shout out to my students too, because it really, truly, something has happened. They've emerged out of this kind of COVID, raring to go. It's quite impressive.
It is so impressive. And, I want to give a shout out to my daughter as well, who has blown me away with her resilience and all of that generation, really, especially given the hand they've been dealt. So you guys give me hope. I so appreciate your friendship. I so appreciate your willingness to be here. So everybody, Jen Taub, author of The Indispensable Big Dirty Money, and has a new book on the horizon, which Jen is called. Well, that's the old one.
No, but
book.
New book is, the working title is Taxation Nation, Lessons from the Loophole Factory.
Right. And the best thing about that book so far is that it's going to get us to Grand Cayman. So
that is top secret secrecy jurisdiction.
I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding.
Yeah, I'm sure you are.
Eugene Carroll, proprietor of the phenomenal newsletter Ask Eugene. Guys, check it out on Substack. It is
thank you.
One of my favorite things. Marissa Rothkopf,
Me too.
You interrupted I was on a roll. Marissa Rothkopf of these, not just the podcast, but also the Substack, The Secret Life of Cookies. Check out both. Marissa's a master baker, but honestly, her podcast is one of it's a sleeper. It is not just about baking. Totally. It is literally like showing up at a friend's house, ending up in the kitchen, and talking about all the important stuff that's going on in the world. So check out all of that stuff. My friends, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Everything. You helped keep me sane to the degree that that's possible.
Don't blame us.
No, I do not at all. All right. All right. Thanks, guys. Stay safe.
Bye, Mary.
Well, it's a wrap. Thank you so much for hanging out with me tonight for the very first live show of the Mary Trump Show. Please subscribe to the Politicon YouTube channel. Like us, follow us, and click on that bell so that way you're going to be sure to get alerted anytime a new show is coming up. And you could also follow us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts, except, of course, for Spotify. And give us a 5-star rating because it really helps other people find the show. Thank you so much to my guests, Jen Taub, Eugene Carroll, Marissa Rothkopf, and to our friends, Joyce Vance and Katie Fang, who are with us in spirit. Hopefully they'll be able to join us next time we get this incredible group together. And again, thank all of you. I can't wait to see you here again next Thursday night at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific time. In the meantime, have a great week and stay safe.